Hello everyone, my name is Ren. I am the co-organizer of GDG Ahmedabad, and on behalf of entire team of GDG Ahmedabad, I welcome you all on our webinar for today. Thank you for joining us today on the Sunday evening. This time we are bringing you webinar on totally different topic, which is virtual reality and augmented reality. Most of the time when we heard term VR or AR, we always think about gaming, but there is a world beyond gaming for VR and AR. And with this webinar, you will get to know the untouched areas where you can implement VR AR in your applications. We are going to introduce the crucial steps which you need to build the new parallel digital universe with AR and VR in your application. With that, let me introduce our speaker for the day. Welcome, sir. Today
Hi.
we have a speaker, Mr. Krupalu Mehta. He's a co-founder and CEO of Parallax Lab, a Mumbai-based VR AR content development company. He did his bachelor's in computer engineering from KJ Somaiya College of Engineering, Mumbai. And after that, instead of pursuing his master's from USA or getting a job, he started his own company called Parallax Lab. And since 2016, Parallax Lab has been providing end-to-end solution in virtual and augmented reality for the verticals like manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, automotive, and all. So welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us today. And on behalf of our entire team, I welcome you. Thanks for having a time for us. And yeah, you can start sharing your screen and you can take it over.
Sure. Thank you so much, Hiren, for the lovely introduction. It's an honor for the first time to be at a GDG event. Especially GDG Ahmedabad, and Ahmedabad has been very close to my heart because it's been special. Parallax has been working a lot with Ahmedabad, and to begin, being a Gujarati, I would also like to say Kemcho Ahmedabad and Kemcho Google Developers Group. Ahmedabad has been very close because Parallax has been working a lot with ISRO's Space Application Center, which is located in the satellite area. So we've been around, right from Akshardham Temple to Manik Chowk. It has been close to our heart while our business trips to Ahmedabad were so successful. So on that good note, we'll begin our the discussion, I would say, today because it's more two-way. It's better to be two-way. Actually, it's better to be interactive because there's a lot to be shared, lot to be learned, on both the sides. Okay, so it's just not going to be a lecture. It's just not going to be a talk. Let's keep it interactive. And like I just said, Hiren, comments in between and questions in between are most welcome. So
sure, we'll do that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot. I'm going on sharing my screen.
Yes.
All right. As you know, Hiren introduced me. I am Krupalu Mehta, co-founder and working CEO of Parallax Labs, and we have been into this business since 2016, providing solutions to various industries, right from pharmaceutical to defense, to manufacturing and healthcare now. And it's been a very exciting journey, and always like an event like this, where people are so excited to learn about virtual reality and introduce them about what VR does and how it is. And I'm sure most of you guys have already seen what VR is, and you've already experienced what VR is, and not only VR but AR as well. So today we're just going to look at that smooth transition, because everybody has this perception in their mind that VR and AR technologies are gaming technologies, or probably are made for game players or people who are very enthusiastic about getting inside a particular environment and immerse into that environment to be transported into another world for the purpose of entertainment. But smoothly we're going to look at how we transit from the areas of gaming to the areas which are probably never touched. Okay, so let's go ahead. So just split the talk into 4 sections today. The first one is realizing that there is an existence of a metaverse. I would come to that. What is a metaverse? Um, and believing that it exists, okay, and it's slowly being built. Secondly, today, since we are part of a developers group, we all are developers, we are all creators. We come and become as a community of and a combination of creativity and technology. So we come together to celebrate that and create new content and create uh, a contribution towards creating this metaverse. So we look at how, who and when can anybody from literally any place now, because place doesn't matter now, can contribute towards creation of this metaverse. Um, of course, moving towards beyond gaming, aspects of VR, AR, and mixed reality, and how fundamentally they are forming the strong pillars, for creating opportunities beyond gaming for these technologies. And lastly, how do you build your own social universe? How do you be a part of this metaverse? How would you become um, uh, a proper if not a protagonist, but a major part of this huge puzzle, which is in the making. So I would, since this is one way, I wouldn't be able to ask what is a metaverse, but let's look at what is a metaverse. It is like we have already discussed in the abstract. Before joining this session, you would have read or listened to the abstract. This is a kind of a parallel digital universe that we as mankind are making. And fundamentally, the pillars of these metaverse are virtual reality, augmented reality, and fortunately, the internet. Now, metaverse, if you see, in terms of jargons, I can call it to be a virtually enhanced physical reality. If you really look it in detail, you might not be aware, probably, a lot of people over here might not be aware of the term augmented reality, or they also might be not be aware of the term virtual reality. We will come to that, don't worry. But people who know, um, virtually enhanced physical reality is what, if you really listen to it closely, it's augmented reality. You're enhancing your reality with virtually enabled objects, okay? So that's AR. And it is a combination of physically persistent virtual social space. So you can call this metaverse as a social space which is digitally formed. It is inside our devices, but it exists so that people located at different places could collaborate and work together, play together, entertain together. So, if you have seen this movie called The Ready Player One, we have seen a glimpse of what a metaverse is by the name of Oasis. So, just imagine by having your own personal Oasis. It could be Facebook, but where you could be immersed into Facebook in form of a 3D avatar where you could talk to people, meet people, but everything happens socially. All right. And the third and the most important component is the internet. So the internet already is providing the services to us. It is giving what we want already. Okay. So in this in this depressing time of a lockdown, these four guys have been literally very helpful. And I mean, I have to be thankful for my survival, at least for these 3 months. And of course you also would relate it to how you've been spending time. um, but these four pillars of OTT, or you could say on demand content, is nothing but content traps. Okay, so don't imagine the metaverse as a combination of nicely created Hollywood content. So what I would try to do over here is put some context. um, Virtual reality, augmented reality, and the internet is trying to make a kind of parallel digital universe, alongside. But these, video services or the content that is being created is sort of creating a mind, a mindset in people that these technologies, or let's say, these services are are creating a psychological metaverse in our minds. But just imagine, these combined with technology. So people who are watching Black Mirror over here, a lot of people from here were watching Black Mirror, and this episode called Bandersnatch had an option of selecting what part of the series you would want to look at. So going there, you would know that interactivity with content combined would actually lead to creation of this metaverse. So what is a threat to this to this to these services? They're minting money. So you could read what is a thread straight from the CEO of Netflix. He says that we are more convinced that with the competitive risk of massively networked interactive experiences like Epic Games Fortnite than Hulu or HBO Max or any other traditional broadcaster. So if we see Netflix, Amazon Prime, and these on-demand video services are facing a huge threat from nothing but PUBG. Imagine the advent of PUBG, if would have come in this time of quarantine, would have created at least 4 to 5 times of revenue than it created originally back then. Or imagine the advent of Fortnite in these times, it would have created 5 times, because um, interactivity put together with content gives birth to a more social space, which is inevitable, and that is being created parallelly, and that's what we would call as the metaverse. And the metaverse is, of course, more than just content. Like I said, in totality, it's a promise of mankind to its own, that it's far more than just content. Now, moving towards the second part of it, how as a community of developers, how as a community of people who have been always creating, a community of creators together with technologists could shape up this metaverse. Okay, so here you are. I'm introducing two big game engines to you guys, where most of the content for virtual reality and augmented reality is made. Sorry, Unreal Engine is a game engine that is being used to create fabulous games like PUBG and Fortnite, and it is owned by Epic Games. So Epic Games is the one who owns Fortnite, and it is the same owner which has come out with Unreal Engine. So just last week, or let's say a couple of weeks ago, we've seen mind-blowing graphics by Unreal Engine with its introduction of Unreal Engine 5. So till now it was Unreal Engine 4, and now we've come up with 5, where, if you're aware of the term called photogrammetry, it is photorealistic content that if you see would be otherwise impossible to create in games, is now being introduced in Unreal 5 without the need of any optimization. So photogrammetry content is basically photorealistic environments. So the kind of graphics that we've been seeing, from the 90s, where we've been playing games like Dave and Aladdin, and our cassette played games. From there to let's say something more complicated like Road Rash, and moving from there like Vice City, and now GTA 5, and now from GTA 5 to actually very very photorealistic environment, is something that is coming up with these engines. Similarly, Unity is doing its great part by introducing latest render pipelines, and which are very lightweight, and it would be very apt for a person to use Unity for rapid prototyping for these kind of experiences. So the whole point is that these two technologies, or let's say these two engines, are the core on which most of your content for games is being built. But also at the same time, they're building the new reality. They're building content for virtual and augmented reality, as well as mixed reality. And that is why we call game engines are probably the new reality engines. So like I said, game engines have, they've moved rapidly and beyond games to be interactive and very, very high fidelity graphics with these environments. They provide the foundation upon which the true next generation of interactive experiences would be built. So by the word true next generation of interactive experiences is what we mean, by metaverse. Now, when we talk about the metaverse, we talked about virtual reality, we talked about augmented reality. People in general now these days have been calling, um, these technologies together as extended reality. Now, extended reality is an umbrella term for whatever that is augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality together could be called as extended reality. Now, for people who are just waiting, for people who are thinking that everything till now has been going bouncer, let's go slow from this point. Virtual reality is any technology, it looks like this, okay, is any technology that attempts to transfer you from your existing real space to a completely virtual space. Okay, it transports you from a reality to a completely virtual space. Now, virtual reality could be, even a simple form of digital content that you receive from Netflix. Okay, so why I gave the example of Netflix in the beginning is because you could set the context over here. When you're watching Netflix and you're watching continuous series one after the other, you're so immersed into it, and you are actually satisfying the need of the creator. The creator of that content, the creator of that series, wants you to be immersed into his creation, and that is his attempt of virtual reality. So by nature, VR has always existed, okay, but the form of VR has always changed. And now, with the whole hype coming in since, let's say, 2012, since Palmer Luckey has come up with Oculus, and Facebook's acquisition of Oculus in 2014, and then Google coming in with Google VR, and then Microsoft coming in, almost everybody has come in into virtual reality. It has become a norm. Why is that? Is because the devices have attempted into a greater form of immersion where you are completely disconnected from your real world and you're transported into a different world. So compare it to the Netflix content, you are completely disconnected. Over there you're still there, but you are, psychologically somewhere lost into the story of the series. If even if you compare it to a huge dome like structure, in Mumbai we have a theater called as IMAX theater, and it's a huge dome where you sit and you experience the whole screen as if you are into that thing. So even that is a great attempt to virtual reality. These days, virtual reality headsets from Facebook, from Google, from Microsoft, from Sony. The example over here is of the Sony PlayStation, virtual reality. If you see very closely, the very recent launch of PlayStation 5 has improved tracking and has improved processing power with its console. So if you see, even Sony is now pitching, and in so basically the demo that we saw with Unreal Engine 5, which had very photorealistic graphics, was to be played on the Sony PlayStation 5. And they are also betting that the new version, that is a PSVR 2, would be coming with a very higher, bets on uh, on on VR. Moving towards AR, right from Instagram filters to Snapchat filters to Pokemon Go, we've already seen, what VR and AR have, done to our daily life. There was a huge craze with Pokemon Go, and now these days with the filters and the availability of new slam technologies, AR has been more accessible than ever. So we have seen this shift from people downloading applications for augmented reality for augmented reality to moving towards web AR. So these days, if you very recently seen, Google was supporting AR for people. So there was this hype where Indian news channels were promoting, if you just type in, let's say, tiger on the browser, you would be getting this AR view for for the tiger. So that was available, and that made things more accessible, basically. So that was Google's attempt to make AR more accessible with AR Kit, sorry, the AR Core, and Apple's attempt was with AR Kit. So that's AR, anything that is placed in your real world but appears to be part of the real world but is virtual in nature, is what augmented reality is. Now, mixed reality is a very debated term. Okay, um, in modern virtual and augmented reality industry, people have been calling MR as something that sits on Microsoft HoloLens or Magic Leap. So it's a combination of virtual reality plus mixed reality. That is why they call it, sorry, mixed reality. But I think I can explain mixed reality in a better way in the next slide. So if you really put the difference over here, we are, on the first part over here is fully artificial environment with full immersion, completely disconnected. AR, whereas, is virtual objects in your real world, they're overlaid. So basically superimposed information creates a bridge between you and thing of your interest. So that's AR. And mixed reality is sort of, we can call as sophisticated augmented reality in modern industry of VR and AR, because Microsoft has coined this term mixed reality for its own devices, but technically it's in the scene. So if you look at this, it's kind of difficult to understand this reality virtuality continuum, but it's a lot to do with terms and jargon. So if we take a minute to understand this, then probably forever life you won't be having a problem with jargons. So moving from the left hand side, real environment, and going towards the virtual environment, everything that lies in between is either virtual reality, augmented reality, or whatever new terms you encounter with. So now let's start from the left hand side. If you move towards the right, the most unsophisticated technology would be augmented reality, where the least amount of virtual information is there in front of you, creates a bridge, and also sort of helps you to understand what your reality is. So let's say Pokemon Go would be a perfect example of what augmented reality is. Or these days, your Snapchat filters or your Instagram filters would be perfect example of AR. Now, moving ahead, when you are into a world where you see a lot of physical environment, that is your real environment, as well as with a wearable, you see a lot of objects that understand your reality and would adjust according to your reality, would be called as augmented virtuality, where we say that the virtual objects would dominate over the physical objects and they would take over your space. So it's necessarily what a Microsoft HoloLens does, or a Magic Leap device does for you. So that's augmented virtuality, but a lot of people call it mixed reality. And then moving in towards the last element, that's the completely virtual environment. That's virtual reality, VR. So everything in between, right from so anything between real environment and virtual environment, leaving aside the extremes, anything in between that could be called as mixed reality. So why is it called mixed reality? Because you have some part of the real environment and some part of the virtual environment. Okay, so technically it should be MR. Now this is what should be called MR. um, Now if you look at statistics, people who be interested in statistics, of course, because developers are least interested. Anybody is going to be like, guy, please come on the point of discussion. How do we make content? If somebody is excited, I'm going to get that comment. So looking at extended reality market, it is going to register 65% growth in this period of 2020 to 2025. Now, very interesting fact over here is that this number of 65% now may move ahead to, let's say, about 145%, because of the existence of COVID-19. Now, why is that? Because of COVID-19, people have opted to work remotely, and that has pushed people to do, remote audits, to do remote meetings, to work remotely, to create remotely, to collaborate remotely, and everything that's remote has to be virtual, fundamentally. So it gives a big push towards, everything, towards creating the metaverse, that's more social. So now it makes even more sense to have a common place where everybody is located at different places, but still they're together in a virtual space through virtual reality. Now, if we look at the India story, this is some time ago that this article and this data was published in the Times of India. By 2022, we might have an estimated size of the Indian immersive market of $6.5 billion, which is very less compared to the global space. But this number again, these numbers are again going to be revised because of uh, COVID. So I would just like to share my experience last night. So last night when I was almost asleep, I get a call from my client at 1 a.m. Because he was in so hurry that they wanted to do an audit which had to happen day after tomorrow, by using virtual reality. So we have already given them Microsoft HoloLens, because one of their factories is located in a very remote place of Far East India, and people and the machines that they use are made in either Sweden or France. Now these people who are the experts of the machine can't actually travel down. So a very interesting fact to look at over here is travel. Now travel is going to be reduced by a huge margin, and that is going to push everything that has to be virtually collaborated or met. So because of that, now they are putting to use their HoloLens for remote assistance. So what happens is whenever they have a problem, there is an expert who is remotely sitting, and he could be collaborating over the internet, connecting through the AR device, the HoloLens, and looking through the perspective of the operator and try to know what the problem is. So this is absolutely remote assistance and remote troubleshooting. So last night what he told me is that can we do something for remote audits, because they are auditors can't travel down, and this gives us a lot of confidence and push of doing things. So just a small story. um, just last statistics. Now these are in $1 billion. Now let's say by 2022 we expect the whole world market to hit the number of $209 billion in terms of the entire market, and out of this you can expect about 50 to 60% for content. So developers who are sitting over here and have great knowledge about let's say C sharp or even Java can get their hands on Unity engine as soon as possible. And people who have been into game development already, um, you guys are already ready to start creating content for virtual reality and augmented reality. And people who are completely unaware of coding, or let's say are from a different background, I would like to inform that VR is a very interdisciplinary field. A lot of people from different backgrounds have come in with their knowledge to create content in virtual and augmented reality. So don't worry. I talked about Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine gives you the ability to do programming visually. So you don't really have to write codes, but you just have to complete the state machines to let your experience start working. Now that's what you could do. Now looking at consumer segment, in the whole pie chart of this is rather a stacked bar. The market share by in 2007, now this is the latest figure I could get. The consumer market in 2017 was 44%, which you could consider that that 44% was because of gaming. Now 3 years down the line, I can say this 44.4% has gone down to at least 30%, giving space for manufacturing, retail, and other businesses. Now here is where we come to the point of discussing what and how is virtual and augmented reality doing. when we talk about beyond gaming. So this is very relevant to us, is because, like I shared, this was our first project in Ahmedabad. It's Vikram Sarabhai Space Exhibition, where we have set up 8 different devices, where every day I think about 150 to 200 students from various government schools visit and experience virtual reality, for free. So even, let's say, as a student, if you go to NASA or ISRO, you would expect, a lot of sci-fi things to be there, something that is cutting edge to be there, even if you are from a very remote school or a very remote place. Now this is what we always wanted to do, and as the ethic of our company, we always wanted, VR to reach masses, and this was our first point. And we can proudly say that, about 200 people experience VR almost every day at this place. It is at Vikram Sarabhai Space Exhibition Center in Ahmedabad. Now, well, this experience is something that shows you, how a rocket is launched. So very recently, when SpaceX guys launched their rocket, they too streamed it in VR. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen for ISRO. So what we do is we created the whole thing, simulated the whole thing, put it into the VR headsets, and give it out to the exhibition. So it's permanent, and you can visit right away. So looking at the beyond gaming aspect, most of you guys might not be aware of this term, but we are going to talk about Industry 4.0. So with Industry 1.0, we had steam power. With Industry 2.0, we had electricity. With Industry 3.0, we came up with autonomy, or let's say automatic systems that would work on their own. With Industry 4.0, this is the era of cyber physical systems, and a major component of the Industry 4.0, which is a standard, probably a standard, but not exactly a standard being followed by most of the industry experts. Augmented reality is one of the major 9 components that exists out there. Now, if we look at how AR is going to be created for Industry 4.0, some fundamental things have to be in place, like system integration, Internet of Things, and cloud computing. So if these 3 technologies are in place, you are very ready for augmented reality at your industry. So what happens is, um, these days a lot of industries are trying to be Industry 4.0 ready, or let's say digitally revolutionized organization. Now this is a gradual process. You have to start from very basics. Okay, so first of all, you need things to be integrated, so a system has to be in place. Then your systems need to be talking, and that is possible through IoT. And of course, all the data has to be stored on the cloud, and then you're ready to go. So this is one of our solutions that we did at happy to share that this is for Hindustan Unilever, one of India's largest FMCG companies. Now these people have a HoloLens. Again, they have a remote factory. And one of the very interesting solutions I would like to share over here is guided assistance and changeover paths. So they have a huge machine. They have about, let's say, you know 15 or 16 feet long machine. Now in this machine, every day a new product is being manufactured. Over here, all your Vaseline or your Clinic Plus shampoos, all Tresemme products are being manufactured. So every time the product is changed, you have a changeover process that happens. Now, how do you train an operator that comes in as a new person into the organization? So for this, technically what happens is this person wears the HoloLens, goes in front of the machine, and step by step, every you know step of the whole process is shown to that person through mixed reality, rightly placed on the whole, on the entire machine. So what happens is, with augmented reality, you get cues, where, okay, this is the step 1, this is the step 2. I'll be showing a video for this, how we have done this. So I'm not explaining a lot about this. We can look at it through the video. Secondly, this is something that is very, very applicable right now. So the operators major concern is having hands free. So to have our hands free, it is very important to have a wearable device. So again, here the HoloLens comes into the picture, or we could be using a Magic Leap or a Real Wear or something like that, where you could go in front of the machine and you could start annotating with this tool called remote assistance. It's a part of Microsoft Dynamics 365. With this tool, you could start marking out your problems, and a remote expert could collaborate with you and be with you all the time while you are trying to troubleshoot your problem. So these small problems could be easily resolved, even without that person traveling down thousands of miles. And it's almost impossible to travel to at least this place, is because it's at a very remote location in Assam. Now even for me to go there, I have to take a flight from Bombay to, let's say, Guwahati or Kolkata, and from Guwahati to Dibrugarh, and then from Dibrugarh again I have a 2 hours drive from Dibrugarh to Dumduma, and it's situated in Dumduma. So it's really far. So any person from Sweden or France, it's a nightmare just to travel down for a small solution. And that's how it's been making change in COVID as well. Now this is a video I was talking about. Um, so it's been recorded from the perspective of the person who is wearing the HoloLens. Now what happens is, he gets all his SOPs right over here in the HoloLens, and the list of operations are being mentioned right over here. Now, like I said, step by step, he's being guided by the software, which is creating a layer of information between the user and the machine. Now here, if you see this virtual hand over here, is actually guiding the person of how he's going to do all the operations. Even the way of using these tools. And that was the objective. The objective was to replace the motor over there, and it was resolved by the step-by-step procedure. So the thing over here is that with this provision, the whole training process efficiency increases so rapidly that it actually creates an impact on your production pipeline. So that is a change we were trying to make for HUL as well. Now looking at a very amazing use case over here is that a similar mixed reality human machine interface is what we try to build with, again, a local company. So the problem over here, why I took this use case is because it is very relevant at this point of time in terms of quarantine and COVID. How do we leverage mixed reality for a small thing like inventory management or stock management? So now the existing process is something like this. Now if you have, the huge machine is there, okay, it's always there. Now this is a problem for the OEM which manufactures the machine. So this guy who is an operator understands that there is a problem with the machine, and it is never being reported to that person that where the problem in the machine lies. Okay, so that is, the first problem. Without, I mean, in the absence of system integration and IoT, the person cannot know which part of the whole machine is malfunctioning. Now the next step is, a very rudimentary thing where a person goes inside the machine and tries to click a snap of the malfunctioning part, and tries to search for that part in the whole manuals, and where the person has to literally go through pages and start communicating with the expert who is sitting remotely. Now after the exchange of a lot of emails and a conversation, the person has to actually come down and identify which parts are actually not working. And then because of this travel, the cost definitely increases. Now this is a great problem when we talk about post COVID era. Now the option of traveling is completely not there, and it cannot hold, or it cannot stop the production pipeline. Okay, so now this was a problem for a pharma company, and this pharma company cannot stop production, especially in this time, because they are the ones on, they had the machines in which crucial medicines like Saradon or Crocin are being manufactured. So let's look at the mixed reality process. Now in this mixed reality process, because of a connected system, because of IoT, where underlying system is connected, you can actually identify which part is malfunctioning. And with AR, what happens is you go in front of the machine and it automatically highlights which part is actually not working spatially, which is located on the machine itself. So imagine the machine, and it's located in, in space, just like you would imagine, in an Iron Man movie. Um, that's how it would be augmented, and the person goes over there. The next step is so simple that just by touching that part, this part goes into the inventory system, and the order automatically gets placed to the OEM. So OEM receives the order and directly ships the part, to the company. And that's how we reduce the whole process. Now the challenge over here, the technical challenge that we face, I include this part is because as developers it's important to understand how we were taking care of it. So the challenge was cloud. Okay, we had a system of Mitsubishi Electric, so we had a programmable logic controller at the end of of the machine. At the cloud we were using a very simple Excel sheet where we would log in what parts are being not functioning well, instead of using a proper RDBMS. Now at the front end we would be using the HoloLens as a mixed reality device, or the phone, okay, as augmented reality device. Now the problem is that in pharma you cannot store data on the cloud. None of your data can go on the cloud and reside there for a long time, because it includes very very crucial information. So we went towards the HMI, let's say the human machine interface, which is always there with the machine. So prominently there is a technology by BNR Automation called MapView, is what we use for the front end. And we revolutionized how this thing, when what was looking to this thing. Okay, now the view of HMI, as you can see, is very simple. It's very crude. We got the edge over to actually also redesign the entire interface for their HMI, completely powered by HTML, and we put in JavaScript as well, because it's completely web controlled. And the advanced benefit was that it could communicate with the HoloLens because of the underlying system. So we came up with this HMI, and through this HMI we started communicating with the machine and identifying where it is. So we removed the need of the cloud, and through the HMI and peer-to-peer connection we could directly communicate with the machine. So here is how we solved an advanced problem that existed through mixed reality. And this is just to show you guys that how serious it gets when VR is not serious about gaming, or AR is not serious about gaming or entertainment. It's There is a huge ocean of things that's possible beyond gaming. um, Moving towards a completely different section, just to give you guys a break. This experience is something that's being built, and it's being taken care by professors and researchers in the United Kingdom. And these people have been building solutions for healthcare training. So this is something that we would understand once we have a look at it.
The virtual operating room, I can see there's
So surgery
100 different elements.
with the help of virtual reality
There's instructions.
is
There are various different machines and pieces of equipment
a
around
game
the room,
changer.
and there's an X-ray.
And
And here in front of me is the patient, all ready for
here
surgery.
we have an example
I'm using the Ronger tool to
of
start
how
with,
they're
and
going to
that's absolutely
replace a
enabled.
part
So I can
just
feel
by
each
training
of
the
the
person
vertebrae
through
on the
virtual
spine.
reality. Now these devices that the pen-like devices that this doctor is using
First,
are
I'm going to take a small piece of bone from there
traditional devices, and they've just been made compatible with the Oculus Rift.
and confirm that I'm ready. Next, I enlarge the hole I've just made with the Ronger using the awl. There, that's nice and enlarged. So what I'm also able to do during the procedure is to use the X-ray to check I'm in the right position. And here you can see on the X-ray that I'm going into T3 nicely in both transverse and sagittal planes. The key part of the instructions is to teach people how to make the actual probe into the
Now just skip through this.
and at the required angle. Let's X-ray and see how it's done. Now I have a feeler, so I can check the integrity of the channel.
Now these devices as peripherals would give you fabulous feedback of what you've been doing as a doctor and surgical training. So as an organization, industry problems like remote assistance and remote training and remote maintenance are a priority for the industry. And when we look at healthcare and medical training and surgical training is also one field where it could make amazing impact. Now it's an honor to be working with defense organizations in India as well. So this is uh, a preview of what we've been doing with the Indian Navy as medical training solutions. The graphics that you see over here are completely real time, and they've been made on the Unreal Engine. And these graphics that you see over here, since they are real time, it's a huge challenge for us, to create such kind of reality uh, through a game engine, and simulate the actual incident. So here we are doing emergency response. So here the user is facing an emergency and he has to react to this emergency situation. So through VR, we actually expose the person to that particular environment which would be otherwise impossible. This, if you skip through, the person has been taken into a medical environment, and that's where you have to take decision. So the understand how impactful this could be in decision making training. So I leave it up to you, to think how and where this these things like VR and AR could actually make a change. in terms of being impactful. Um, and at the end of this experience you get a training report as well, which would tell how the person is trained. So an example of um, social world or creating a metaverse is what we did almost a year ago, while we made an experience which was for the HoloLens, which was necessarily for the architects to collaborate over mixed reality and work on you know one single project. So like you see, the preview over here shows that when you are wearing a mixed reality headset, you are remotely connected. You are not present at one single location. Two people are present at different locations and they are collaborating. So we've provided tools like movement, rotation, sorry, rotation, scale, cross section, for that matter. And these tools, yeah, prove very handy when you are collaborating over mixed reality. And this is an actual video um, of that experience. Now this guy, now I'm wearing the, oh, so okay, this is the video where I'm wearing the HoloLens, and it has been recorded at the IIT Bombay, and the person standing in front of me is in actually in Bangalore, and this guy and me, we both are testing out the software. So we are actually talking. So over here we have complete voiceover, um, you know um, internet protocol, and we are collaborating and annotating over the same project. Let's say, we have a lot of options to modify, add elements, delete elements, and that is how the demo is like. So we talked about the untouched area, where VR and AR could be applicable. So one of the examples I would like to share is let's say an HR induction. So uh, I think uh, I think 1.5 years ago we did one solution for one of the largest MNCs in India, which had 15 different business functions. So they are across businesses. So for any person who would join the company, it would be very boring, you know, to sit back and enjoy a PPT. I mean, enjoying is literally impossible for that person. So what we did is we made a VR experience where the person would dive into a completely new world. There would be a virtual assistant who would be taking you through different experiences, and while she's taking you through different experiences, you are being inducted about how and what are the different functions of that company. So you don't have to watch a PPT. Instead, we are gamifying everything. So like I said, there's a smooth transition between the use cases that are only meant for gaming purposes and the use cases um, that are serious or beyond gaming. Now the bridge is basically gamification. People who like to experience VR as a game would take that experience, would take that problem and treat it as a game. So let's say we took this HR induction experience as a problem and we gamified the entire process so that the user play feels as if he has to collect points, he has to go inside a particular environment, collect things from there, get as much information as possible, and there is a leaderboard as well at the end. So the entire corporation has a leaderboard, and whoever is leading would get some reward, of course. And with that motive, anybody is interested to do an HR induction in virtual reality. So these areas are very untouched. Another example is of agriculture. So just currently we are deploying an application for an agriculture based university in the United Kingdom, where most of their field visits are very boring. They are very uninteresting. So what happens is whenever a person comes in, they are being shown the whole field that is being owned by this university. But this whole process gets too monotonous for the university hosts. So they asked us, why not we create a window to the future, and we create a an AR experience where you would go and stand on the field, and they would show what the what the university is planning to do, as as its vision and its mission, to create futuristic technologies at the university to change the way agriculture has been happening since ages. So otherwise it would be impossible for them to communicate. It would be possible through only a video, but it wouldn't have made sense when you go out on the field and look at the video. That would be possible even if you are not geographically located over there. So that's one example of how we went into untouched areas like induction and agriculture. And lastly, I would want to talk about how you could be a part of this collaborative future. So we just yesterday we were doing this research about what all platforms exist in this current time where you could get hold of one of the VR devices. Now if we see, before 3 months it was not a norm to work remotely so frequently. Okay, and now it's a norm, when we say that we would like to collaborate over Zoom, and let's say this whole event is happening via a YouTube service, or let's say StreamYard. So it was not possible. People didn't really anticipate the kind of shift that we've made as co-workers. So the whole thing of collaborative, computer supported collaborative work could be changed by having to contribute towards this quietly created metaverse by using existing platforms. So the whole discussion over here is to get into the space by using these platforms. I would name a few for you guys so that you can actually start getting onto it. One of the platforms is spatial.io. There's another platform called Glue. And then there are a couple of more platforms like Facebook Horizon, which is in the works. So Horizon is much like the screen that I have shared over here, which is a screenshot of the movie called Ready Player One, where it's set in 2045 and the whole world is going under burns, and people are just using VR to escape their reality and get into a virtual reality where they've built their own metaverse. So in the movie they have shown as if the metaverse already exists. But although the movie had a very dystopian approach, I would here like to mention that always by having a utopian approach we could shape our metaverse accordingly. And like Ready Player One, we could be a part of creating this metaverse by actually using collaborative tools through virtual reality and augmented reality. So for people who are already having VR and AR devices with them, they could collaborate over VR, so that working remotely is never a problem. And we see this as a change in the future. And with our practices which are currently going on and the activities that we are doing to contribute into this whole thing, we feel the future is now. That's pretty much from my side, and now the platform is open for questions. Thank you.
Well, yes, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. And honestly, my doubt about mixed reality is clear today, because few days back when I heard the term mixed reality, I was like, what is this? We already have augmented reality and virtual reality, and now we have something called mixed reality. So
Yeah.
today you clear the doubt that mixed reality is nothing but the combination of augmented reality as well as the virtual reality. So yeah, that was like, it was a very wonderful session. Now we have a few questions from our viewers, so I am going to flash it one by one.
Sure.
First is, here's a request from one of our viewers that can you provide a resource link to learn AR VR implementation?
Sure. So, like I said, a very good start for learning VR and AR implementation or creating content would be, Unity 3D, because it's out there and available. It's free as well. So, if you're a student It's great for you to learn. If you're an organization, you could buy resources from Unity and get Unity's pro licenses and plus licenses to start developing content. Not only that, if you're not from a technical background, if you're from the creative background, your expertise in Maya or 3D Max, or let's say in any type of 3D content creation, even let's say Blender, would also help. So online tutorials on Unity 3D or Blender or Max or Maya would help in creating content. If you want to learn AR, now these days it's very accessible also. Let's say you could prototype AR with Apple's Reality Composer, tool, as well as Facebook's Spark AR is available now. Snapchat's own API is available. So all these tools are available for AR to start with right now, and they are free. That's fortunate for us.
Great. If you can list it down it somewhere and share with me, I can share it with all
Sure.
the
Yeah.
community
And
members.
what
So
I'll do is I'll share a huge resource of,
yeah,
compilation that I have, and that something that I
yeah,
usually share with Hiren, so that it's out there and available with the community.
sure, sure. That would be very much helpful. One more question from Kartikeya Rawat. How to build hardware for it? Whether it's in virtual reality, so is it like uh,
So hardware creation is something that is very challenging. The whole process of hardware manufacturing is is not it's an interdisciplinary field. Okay, so here, what kind of hardware you're talking about? Although it has a huge potential, even today, starting from 2014 till today, there is a challenge of creating a very ideal virtual reality headset. Okay, with real with resolution that beats every other device. So if you're talking about building hardware that is a virtual reality headset, then you have to be a really good expert in embedded software. You need to get an expert who is good at optics. Then you need to get someone who has already worked with screens, and building small scale devices, or somebody with experience working on mobile manufacturing. So these are the components that you would need. I mean, it would be very difficult for an individual to start creating hardware, whereas you could start making peripheral devices for VR. Let's say a peripheral like a controller or like a tracker, which could be a combination. Let's say something as simple as a leap motion sensor, which would be used as a gesture recognition device. So you could, Karthike, you could Google what a leap motion is, or probably if you've already seen yours, you could try making something like that, or even combining existing pieces of hardware. You could do that. Then it's possible for you.
okay? Great. There's one more question from Frankie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice question. um yes, people should dive into learning game engines to start pursuing future into AR MR space, because that's what has been happening. Um, the game engines have been providing so much of resources, so much of tools to make amazing experiences, that any other platform, if you would go or choose for, would be very cumbersome, would be very difficult for you to make a leap into you know a space where people are already making so much progress. So if you want to create amazing content, yes, you should be in VR AR. You should go into the game engine development space, and they provide a lot of resources. So that's a straight yes.
Okay. One more question from Karthikeya. What's your say on TensorFlow JS or AR?
Oh wow, we were just discussing TensorFlow JS. A couple of days ago. I'm not sure if TensorFlow has an API for augmented reality, but TensorFlow would allow you to identify objects. Okay, so it would allow you to identify what object is what, and then you could use that data. You could use information from TensorFlow JS to augment back into it, because it's like a pieces of missing, puzzle. Now TensorFlow JS it tells you what is what, okay? And augmented reality, augments on a said object. So let's say you identify, let's say, you want to augment some information on let's say a jar of water. Now TensorFlow is going to tell you that this is a jar of water, but if you want AR to be on it, you need that information plus a layer of AR APIs, to be to make the whole experience possible. So TensorFlow could help, but I'm not sure if TensorFlow is combined with AR APIs. So you could take
Right.
information. Yeah.
Yeah, so to answer that further, it's like TensorFlow JS is not meant for augmented reality and virtual reality. It's just the machine
Yeah.
learning library with the JavaScript. So as you have
Yeah.
said, that it can identify the object, but uh, along with that, you can add one other libraries of JavaScript, and along with the TensorFlow JS. TensorFlow JS can be useful for implementation, but it is not just a one-end solution or just a standalone solution for augmented reality and virtual reality.
What I could
Right.
suggest over here is you could combine 3JS with TensorFlow
Yes,
JS. If you really want
exactly.
to build AR experiences on the web, although on web AR experiences are not that stable, but still you could do that. So that is something that I see as a possibility.
Right. Now, sir, one question from my side is that is for the developers who want to begin into AR VR development. We know that lots of languages are there in the market who are which are supporting the AR VR. Let's say, for example, Unity 3D, which mostly works on C Sharp and Java. Uh, what is the most important language? I would say, according to you, what is the most important language which a developer should know before he or she start working on AR VR?
Uh, I would again say, language is not very important. So why I'm saying the whole topic of discussion is that game engines are the new reality engines is because they're really being supportive to create the new, the new metaverse, that is the VR AR technology content. So um, language is not a problem because Unreal is coming up. I mean, Unreal is already out with blueprints, and with Unity you have Bolt. So you could, I mean, the fundamentals of having the knowledge of language, are enough for you to start with game development. But if we see
Okay.
specifically for Unity, you would start doing C sharp. If you know C sharp, that's an add-on. Um, and for Unreal, I think you should know what object-oriented programming is. So
Okay. Great. So we have one more question from Kartikeya. What's your say on AR core?
Uh, I mean, say as in AR Core is a fabulous technology. It has been in competition with AR Kit from Apple. AR Core belongs to Google, and AR Core is wonderful if you want to start doing your native AR applications with Android. So start doing AR Core, and that would be possible for you. I mean, that's it would be a great start, and AR Core provides a really good libraries to start with.
Great.
How to
So one more
achieve
question.
occlusion in AR? Yeah. Now that's I mean, that's a very deep question. You don't have a specific algorithm. Okay, there you go. You don't have a specific algorithm to do occlusion in AR, but the libraries that you would use would provide you with occlusion techniques. Okay, so I mean, let's say if you use ARKit, with iOS 13 and with iOS 13 compatible devices. Let's say if you're using iPhone 10 or iPhone 11, or let's say 11 Pro Max or something, AR core occlusion is built in over there. Whereas if you with iOS 13, of course. But if you use Android, the latest libraries and devices that are being coming in are giving you occlusion for AR. So it has been a challenge, but people who are starting to write their own slam have been possible to achieve occlusion. But another thing is that if you really have the depth information with you, so the most important factor for occlusion is the depth. If you have the object in front of you, you would want to know what is the distance between you and the object, so that your virtual object could hide behind that object, and which is obviously giving you occlusion. So that's what could be done with occlusion. You could use libraries. That's what my conclusion is. um, how to understand teleporting with respect to AR, VR, MR? Well, what kind of teleporting you're talking about? If you're literally talking about teleporting in VR in our industry sense, then when you have a huge virtual space, and if you want to traverse around the virtual space, you would start teleporting inside the virtual space. Because these days, with 6 degrees of freedom devices, when you walk in reality, you really don't have that much of real estate to experience huge space VR experiences. So for that, you would use teleportation. For augmented reality, teleporting is not really used that much. I mean, you can't skip in reality, right? So teleporting is actually used when you want to, hop, skip, jump from one place to the other in a virtual space. So in a real space, you can't really use teleporting. Again, with MR is where you are also in your physical reality. So wherever you are in the physical reality, and somewhat virtual elements are there, you can't really teleport. If I'm understanding the word teleporting, in this context, then this is what the answer is. um Hiraj, Vuforia is not necessary for AR. Vuforia is just one library. Like, we had one more question. AR core is an alternative, is a Google technology that you would use. Vuforia is only one library that you could use for AR, so it's not necessary. Although Vuforia provides you with a lot of resources, again, it's very well connected with Unity, so you could use Vuforia for AR. Not a problem, but it's not at all necessary. Um, Unfortunately, if you look at mainstream AR, VR, and MR, is dependent on the devices. But if you see only AR is very less device dependent. Okay, so now AR is being democratized across mobile phones. So I wouldn't say it's very dependent on devices, but yes, VR and MR fundamentally are dependent on devices. So an alternative to this could be that, AR okay. I mean, we don't have a problem for AR, but for VR and MR, there is an option of having social experiences. Okay, so what happens is, I talked about Glue VR. Okay, it's a social collaboration and remote working platform. So let's say me and Hiren, we both have virtual reality headsets, and we both are collaboratively in a common space in VR. Um, but but you do not have a device. Okay, so you could log on from your desktop computer to be with us in our virtual space. So it's on the platform actually to how to make it more accessible. So being device dependent is an accessibility problem which could be taken up by the platform or the solution provider.
Right, sir. So to add to that question further, as we know that all the major companies have their own platform, like we have discussed, AR Core is from the Google and AR Kit is from the Apple. Is there any cross-platform libraries or cross-platform solutions which we can use across the mobile platform for building AR VR
Sure,
applications?
sure, sure. So a very great cross-platform initiative is AR Foundation. Okay, so
Okay.
if you use AR Foundation, it's quite cross-platform. It's integrated with Unity. You just have to develop once, and you can deploy it. Thank you, Drumal. You could deploy it for VR. Sorry, for iOS as well as Android. So you could do it for both. So AR Foundation is there. Whereas for VR, you have options of going with Windows mixed reality, which is quite cross-platform. It works with Steam VR devices as well, and as well as Steam VR. You could use Steam VR applications again with an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive. but there are limitations, of course. You can't use it with Oculus Quest, which is a completely different device. It's a standalone one, so there is a difference over there. Yeah. Thank you, Karthike. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much for it now. We have covered most of the questions posted by our audiences. And guys, if you still have any questions, Krupalu sir's contact details is there on the meetup page as well as over the YouTube. You can connect with him over the LinkedIn, and if you have any questions further, you can definitely ask him. He's definitely assist you. And thank you so much, sir, for joining today. This was a really great session. And as I have mentioned that this is the first time we have hosted a session over the virtual reality and augmented reality. And basically for the community developer, all the developers in our community, we wanted to have a session where they can clear their doubt that what is exactly needed for implementing the AR VR and what is the difference between whether we should go for AR or VR or MR. So these are all the confusing terms, and now it's very much clear. And definitely this session is going to help our all our community developers further. We would like to thank you again for sparing time on Sunday and having a session with us. And we definitely look forward to have more session with you in future in AR VR field. So thank you so much for joining today, and everybody who is watching this on live streaming. And thank you for joining today. It was really nice, and yeah, we'd like to thank from all of our team members from GDG Ahmedabad.
Thank you, Viren. It's an honor to be here, and it was a wonderful experience. And really looking forward to be in person with the entire GDG Ahmedabad community. Thank you, Drumil. Looking forward for more sessions, and next time probably more sophisticated experience where where you would get hands-on on these devices, and we could start having actual workshops where you could actually start with content development towards completing our mission of creating this entire metaverse.
Okay, so one more question we have just received. So if you can answer that, can we use custom OpenCV models in Unity?
Yeah, so Unity has its own library for OpenCV. It's called OpenCV for Unity. It's a paid one. It has their own models, and you can import your own models into OpenCV, and you could use it in Unity as well. So, and Unity OpenCV for Unity also gives you options for augmented reality. I mean, it has its own sample scenes for augmented reality, where you could use surface as tracking, or you could use image for tracking or anything. So you could, I mean, my suggestion is to go for OpenCV for Unity.
Right. So yeah, that's it for now. And I think your suggestion of having a workshop was really good. Once this COVID-19 situation relaxes, I think we can invite you here in Ahmedabad. And of course, you do have clients in Ahmedabad, so you definitely can travel to Ahmedabad. And when you plan to travel to Ahmedabad, do let us know that we can definitely schedule a workshop, a hands-on workshop over here. That will be really exciting for all the community developers, because that will get real-time experience of this AR, VR, and mixed reality. Right. So yeah, thank you for joining us, sir, today, and we look forward to host you again in future. Yeah.
Thank you
so much,
so
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.